an awkward millennial. Hi there, my name is Cheryl and I'm a very bored millennial in the middle of Corona quarantine. So why not make some pretzels? I used to work at Auntie Anne's pretzel shop in my local mall back when I was in college about 10 years ago. So I found a recipe for pretzel dough that's a pretty basic recipe. Not the one that they used at Auntie Anne's, but it's a pretzel recipe. And I brought in my technique and some of the things I remembered about the dough making process and the rolling process, the pretzel forming process. So in this video, you're gonna see how to make dough. You're gonna see how to make the baking soda bath. That's gonna give you that color and a little bit of that slight metallic flavor, but you know, it's just the pretzel flavor, so it's not just bread, it's pretzels. And then I'm also gonna be showing how to make twisty pretzels, nuggets, and sticks. So let's go. For this recipe, you're going to need 1.5 cups of warm water, 1 packet of active dry yeast, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, which is going to be melted, 3 3/4 to 4 or possibly more cups of all-purpose flour, some coarse salt for sprinkling, and a 1/2 cup of baking soda. Starting out with the warm water here, I just used the hottest tap water that my sink will produce, mixing in that packet of active dry yeast until things are well combined and the yeast is dissolved. And that needs to rest for about a minute, so I'm using that time to go melt my butter in the microwave in about 15-second increments until it's all ooey gooey. Now I've got my teaspoon of salt and tablespoon of brown sugar, just plopping those in there, and then streaming in my melted butter and whisking it all together. Once that's done, I do a little bit of cleaning up, but you know I'm not going to waste your time, so I edited that out for you. Here I'm spooning my all-purpose flour into my measuring cup. Got this tip from Carla on Bon Appetit to avoid packing the flour if I would have just scooped it out of the container there. So that my dough doesn't wind up being too dry. And I'm doing this for the first 3 cups of all-purpose flour that's going into the dough. I'm just leveling off the top there. So I'm going to be switching to my silicone spatula here to mix the flour into the wet ingredients. And first 3 cups are going in this fashion. After that, I'm just going to keep adding little bits of flour until the dough is no longer sticky. And when I poke it with my finger, it bounces back. Now I wish I would have measured it out here instead of just pinching it and transferring it, but here we go. Looks like we're about ready to knead. Let's see if I poke it. Oh, yep, it rises back to that shape. So we're ready to go. I'm flouring out my surface to avoid the dough sticking to my countertop. And I'm just gonna knead this dough for about 3 minutes to get some gluten development so our pretzels will be super duper tasty. Now my dough actually was pretty sticky still, so I've added some more flour in there as well. But here we go, I'm rolling her up into a ball, putting her into a bowl, and then I'm gonna cover her with a towel. Sorry about my ring light there. All right, prepping for baking. I've got my baking soda bath getting ready to go. 1/2 cup of baking soda and 9 cups of water in that large, whatever you call that. My oven is preheating to 400 degrees and I've got a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. Now my dough needs to rise for about 20 to 30 minutes in a warm place. So I actually went ahead and tossed it in some oil and covered it with plastic wrap because I remembered that was the Auntie Anne's way, and I put it on top of the oven that was preheating. And you can see I've mixed the baking soda into the water there, and I've lowered the temperature after it was allowed to boil for a few minutes. Now I'm ready to start rolling out my twisty boys, as I like to call them. This is some really, really sticky dough. That was not supposed to happen, so I'm I'm just gonna get my strand restarted over here. So I've got a floured surface to prevent my dough from sticking to my countertop. And I'm rolling out my strand of dough to create a twisty pretzel. And it's gotta be pretty long. You want it to be about as long as your arm, so somewhere between 2 and 3 feet. Once I've got that, I use my dominant hand to swirl the strand around the other side. Clearly, I'm a little out of practice, but on the 4th time, I almost get it. So I just push the feet into the bottom of the loop there, and I'm stretching it out to try to get it to be a little bigger because it came out kind of small. And there you go. You could see those feet are just kind of pressed into the bottom. The ends of the strand are called the feet. And I set that aside as I roll out the rest of my pretzels. I'm gonna make 3 right here. The second one came out a little bit easier. And I'm trying to make the strand uniform in diameter. And clearly this one's coming out a lot bigger. I took out that little bubble right there, and I'm stretching it around and adjusting it, just pushing in the feet, slapping it down, so it's the size that I want it to be. Clearly it came out much bigger. All right, the third pretzel, just so you can see the process of making the twist a few times. I did speed up the video here, so that's why it's kind of wild and fast. Now that one didn't come out very well, so I re-rolled out the strand. Now my dough is really wet and sticky, so I'm actually kind of allowing it to sit back there with the plastic not covering it all the way. But if your dough is rolling out okay, you want to cover it as you roll. Oh, my light went out, but got another small one. It looks okay. Here is me making some nuggets. So it's just a short strand that's very thick. And I'm making some little pillowy pretzel nuggies. Pretzel nuggies. They're so good. All right, now here we go with the baking soda bath. I'm putting on some gloves just because I feel like that's what we did at Auntie Anne's, but later on I just don't even care about using them. Anyways, notice that the water is not boiling. I've got it almost on low. I've got some kosher salt over there for sprinkling later. And I'm gonna take my pretzels and just cover them in the baking soda solution and shake off the excess. If you have too much baking soda solution on there, it is gonna taste metallic, but the reason we're adding it is so that they get nice and golden brown. This is what gives them their color in the oven. That one actually has 2 twists on it, and I think it looks pretty cool. This is actually a later batch that I had made. So my nuggets aren't here, but I actually have some sticks. So there's some pretzel sticks. Just dipping them, shaking them off, and adding them over. If you want to make pretzel sticks, they're really fun. You just roll out your dough strand like you're making a twisty pretzel, and then instead of twisting it, you just cut them out in about 3 to 4 inch sticks. And I'm taking off my gloves here so I can sprinkle that kosher salt on there. The kosher salt isn't very big like you see on usual soft pretzels, so I believe that they do sell pretzel salt or like rock salt or something in between. I've never seen it or I've never purchased it. I just use kosher salt because I'm not that picky. You can also put cinnamon sugar on it if you want, but for things like cinnamon sugar or crunchy candied almond or Parmesan cheese like I've got right there, instead of sprinkling it, it does work to put it in a container and dip the pretzel into it. Now if you want a sweet pretzel, don't put salt on it first. Just dip it in the baking soda solution and then shake it up in the sweet sugar coating. But I'm putting this into the oven at 400 degrees, and that's going to be in there for 12 minutes. It says to let it go from 12 to 15 minutes in the recipe until they are golden brown. So I'm just checking on them here. They're still a little light to my taste, so I'll let them go a little longer, and then I come back when the timer goes off for 12 minutes. And I feel like those look fine. Honestly, they could have gone a little longer, but I like these as they are. So I'm putting them down, and I've got some butter, that's unsalted butter, going on a low, and I've got my silicone brush. That bottom stick there has the Parmesan cheese on it, and I really, really like the control that this method of buttering them gives me, because when I worked at Auntie Anne's, we actually used to just dunk them and submerge them into a bath of, oops, that was my phone. We used to just dunk them or submerge them into a bath of butter, and that kind of grossed me out. So I like that this lets me have some control. You can see that the butter is adding shine. You know it's adding flavor, which is the whole point. But if you want, you can add some more salt here, but this is pretty much it. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to show you a little shot of all of the pretzels I made in this session. And this is the end of our journey. Thank you so much for joining. You can see that these pretzels look imperfect, but delicious. Thanks again for watching my video. If you've made it this far, couple tips and tricks. You can add whatever toppings you want. You could even mix in some chopped up pickled jalapenos if you want. Some good topping ideas are that Parmesan cheese, but maybe some slices of pepperoni. Once upon a time, I attempted to make stuffed pretzels by making a very, very thick strand, flattening it, putting the toppings in the middle of that strand, and then tucking it in before rolling it out. So if you stuck around this far, if you want to see me attempt that again, let me know. I can make another video. But have fun. I hope people found this useful. Bye.